Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm sharing with you guys another weekly dinner idea video, and this week I shared with you guys crockpot honey teriyaki chicken, cheesy chicken penne pasta in the crockpot, fried chicken, and chili. So I know that there's a lot of crockpot recipes, a lot of chicken. It was just the recipes that I had recorded over the couple weeks of me cooking. So let's go ahead and get into the video. So in a mixing bowl, we are going to add in 1/2 cup of soy sauce, 1/4 a cup of vinegar, and 1/2 cup of honey, and we're going to go ahead and give that a really good mix. I also added in a little squirt of lemon juice, but this is totally optional. So in your crock pot, you're going to add in boneless, skinless chicken thighs. The chicken thighs work the best. I have tried it with chicken breast and it's still good, but I definitely prefer the thighs. So go ahead and add the chicken into the bottom of the crock pot. Make sure that your sauce is mixed really well, and then we're going to dump it over the chicken. Once you have that, I'm just going to add some seasoning. I'm adding in some garlic powder, onion powder, and pepper. You can do fresh garlic and onion if you want to. I didn't have any on hand, so I just used the powder stuff, and it comes out just as delicious. Then we are just going to pop the lid on, and I cooked this on low for 3 to 4 hours. You can cook it on high for 2 hours if you want to, but if I had the time to cook it on low, that's just what I prefer. So once the timer is up, you are going to take the chicken and set it aside in a bowl, and then we are going to take the sauce that we just cooked the chicken in, and we are going to reduce it in half. So if you don't know what that is, basically you just take a pot or pan like the one that I have here. We are going to pour the juice in there, and then we are going to let it low simmer until it is reduced by half. And how you can tell is when the sauce starts to reduce, you will see the line where it was, and once it is about halfway down, you've reduced by half. And then once it is at that point, we are going to add in 2 tablespoons of cornstarch with 1/4 a cup of water. Mix that up really, really well, and make sure to mix it beforehand. Don't dump the cornstarch directly into the sauce without mixing with the water first, or you're going to have a mess. So go ahead and dump that in there, and also don't stir the sauce when you are reducing it. Go ahead and stir it once it's reduced by half, and you add the cornstarch in there, and it's going to make a super yummy thick sauce. And this is what the sauce looked like when it was pretty much done. It becomes really thick, and it's super, super delicious. So once you are done reducing the sauce, I do cut up my chicken really well while I'm waiting for the sauce to reduce, and then you are going to return the chicken to the crock pot and add the sauce over it, and it is done. So I just mixed it up really well, and I usually serve it with rice as kind of a honey teriyaki and rice bowl. This is my husband's favorite meal. Doesn't that look so delicious? So that is it for meal number 1. It does take a little bit of time with reducing the sauce, but it is so worth it. This is a family favorite. This is a cheesy chicken penne pasta crockpot recipe. So you're going to start off with 2 cans of the cream of chicken soup. Don't add water to this, just the 2 cans into the bottom of the crockpot. Next, I am adding in 1/2 cup of chicken broth. This is the Great Value brand that I get from Walmart. We are going to go ahead and add that in there and mix it up really well in the bottom of the crock pot. Once that is done, we are going to add the boneless, skinless chicken thighs right on top of that chicken broth and cream of soup. And then we are going to cook it on low for 6 hours. Now, when you cook this, don't remove the lid. Just leave it. It doesn't need to be touched or stirred or checked on or anything like that. Just on low for 6 hours. So once the 6 hours was up, I went ahead and lifted up the lid and shredded the chicken inside. And this is what it looked like when it was done. And then I went ahead and I cooked the pasta. I cooked it after. I don't know why, I just kind of wanted the chicken to be shredded and kind of have some time to soak up all that other stuff in there. So once I was done shredding the chicken, then I went ahead and started the pasta. So while I am letting the pasta drain, I'm going to go ahead and add in 1 cup of sour cream as well as some pepper and onion powder. You can do fresh onion and mushroom and stuff like that, but I didn't have any onion on hand, so I just used the powder, and my family's not a fan of mushroom. Then I went ahead and added in 1 cup of cheese and gave that a really good mix. Then finally, I added in the penne pasta and I mixed it up really well. And then I added about a cup of cheese on top. I didn't measure because, I really like cheese. So I went ahead, sprinkled some cheese on top, and then I cooked it on low for an additional 20 minutes to kind of let everything melt together. And this is what it looked like when it was done. It was pretty good. My husband and his friend really liked it. And to be honest, my kids are a little picky, so they could take it or leave it. It was really good. And if I have the ingredients to make it, I will definitely do it again. So the next recipe is fried chicken. I am just doing fried chicken and potatoes today because it was just me and my son's home. My husband and daughter were not there. So I'm just going to start by chopping up the rest of the potatoes. I think there are 4 there. Spreading them on a foil sheet that I sprayed with some non-stick cooking spray because they do get stuck. Spread them out, add a little bit of oil, seasonings of choice, and then I'm going to go ahead and pop those in the oven while I prepare my chicken and everything else because the potatoes obviously take a while to cook. And if anybody cares, I use pretty basic seasoning, salt, pepper, garlic powder, and just a little bit of paprika. And I cooked those at 400 for about 35 to 45 minutes. So once I had thrown those in the oven, I'm going to go ahead and start on the fried chicken now. I am taking 3 eggs and cracking them into a Ziploc bag and adding in a splash of milk. I didn't measure the milk. I just add a little splash, just a little something in there, and then I mix it up really well. So in another Ziploc bag, I'm going to add some flour. I don't actually measure this, just put enough in there to thoroughly coat your chicken that you're making, and then I am adding a bunch of seasoning. I did salt, pepper, garlic powder, paprika, and a little bit of onion. Use whatever you like. I usually add it in there, shake it up, add it in there, shake it up until I look in the bag and I see kind of the pepper and paprika and stuff floating around through there evenly, and I smell it and all that sort of stuff until I think that I have seasoned it up really well. I really like the flour to have a lot of seasoning because that's pretty much where all of the flavor lies. So once I am done with that, I am going to start on the chicken. So these are boneless, skinless chicken tenderloins. You can use chicken breasts also if you like. This is just what I had on hand. I'm going to dip it into the egg batter, dip it into the flour, shake it around, and then I'm going to pick the chicken back up, put it back into the egg, and then put it back into the flour. I like to double coat it. This really makes a big difference. Now, when I dip the chicken into the egg, when I take it out, I do shake it off a little bit because you don't want too thick of a coating of egg on there. And same thing with the flour. You do want a nice, light, even layer. And like I said, double dip, I'm telling you, it makes the world of a difference. So next I am going to put oil in this skillet. You want to do a nice even coat on the bottom. You don't want to overdo it so it covers the entire piece of chicken. Just an inch or so on the bottom so it covers the bottom and it has room to bubble and sizzle. So I am going to let the chicken sit for about 15 minutes. This is another really good tip. You want to give the egg and the flour time to kind of become one with the chicken, if that makes any sense. So I usually will start to preheat the oil, clean up my seasoning, stuff like that, let the chicken sit, and then I do give it a really quick dip in the flour on the bottom layer because where it lays on the plate, the egg and the flour does rub off a little bit. So I dip the bottom of it in there, and then I am going to put the chicken in the oil. I usually turn on about medium-high heat. You don't want to have the heat too high and completely burn it, but you do need to have it hot enough to kind of fry everything. So I'm going to pop my chicken in there, and then I just cook it. I'm not exactly sure how long I cooked it for, but I just kind of will pick the chicken up every once in a while and look at the bottom and when it is nice and golden brown, I will go ahead and flip it. So another tip is you want to kind of layer the seasonings. So while I have the chicken cooking on one side, I will sprinkle a little bit of salt and pepper on the top, and then when I flip the chicken over, I add a little bit of salt and pepper, and then when I finally transfer it over to the plate, I sprinkle it with a little bit of salt. Layering the seasoning like this really does make a difference in how good and seasoned it tastes, because sometimes the seasoning in the flour just isn't enough. I highly recommend layering the seasonings like I am doing. So this is what it looked like. Like I said, it was just me and the boys, so I just made chicken and potatoes instead. But this chicken is absolutely perfect. It's not greasy. The chicken is not dry. It's super, super flavorful. It's one of my favorite meals. So moving on to chili, I'm going to take 2 pounds of hamburger meat and brown that in the skillet. And I'm pretty sure that was onion seasoning that I added. I don't know why I did that then and not somewhere else, but that's just how I did it. I'm going to mix all these spices up into a bowl, but I wanted to give you the measurements. I'm going to use half teaspoon of salt, half teaspoon of dried basil, 1 tablespoon of chili powder, half a teaspoon of cayenne pepper, half a teaspoon of black pepper, 1 tablespoon of garlic powder, and the original recipe had called for cumin, but I don't have that, so I'm just going to use a little bit of paprika. And I apologize for the really strange camera angle. My tripod had broke, so I thought this angle would have been okay, but apparently not. So then I'm going to add the cooked ground beef into the bottom of the crock pot and add 1 can of just the traditional Hunt's pasta sauce and 1 can of Rotel. This is the tomato and green chili kind. I only added 1, even though the original recipe called for 2, just because I'm not the biggest fan of chunky tomatoes. Then I added 2 cans of rinsed and drained dark red kidney beans, and then I'm going to go ahead and give that a really good mix. Now, I felt like this didn't have quite enough pasta sauce, so after I added in the seasonings and stirred it, I did add some extra sauce that I had sitting in the fridge waiting to be used. But the recipe came out really good. If I could go back, I would probably find another small can to add it in as well, because 1 can just wasn't enough, but I feel like 2 full cans would have been too much. So I'm going to go ahead, give that a really good mix, stir everything together, and then I'm going to cook on low for 4 hours, but you can cook it on high for 2 hours. This was super good. It did have the tiniest bit of kick to it, so maybe if you're feeding this to your kids, maybe leave out some of the spicier spices, but this was delicious. I like to add cheese and sour cream in mine once I'm done, and I made cornbread with it. This was super good. We had leftovers. It was incredible. I definitely will be making this again. Okay guys, that is it for this video. I hope that you enjoyed and got an extra dinner idea or 2. Thank you guys so much for watching, especially if you made it to this point, and I hope to see you guys in my next video. Bye guys!